This is part 2 of my introduction to mindfulness meditation, and in this video I'm going to cover some tips for getting you started on your daily meditation practice. These ideas come from various readings and just different tips that I've picked up from other instructors along the way, and even just sharing from some of my own personal experience with meditation. The first tip is to schedule your meditation and commit to it. One way I've heard this described is to schedule your meditation in your day and then build the rest of your day around it. This is suggested because there are so many other pressing things that we need to get done, and if we don't make meditation a priority, then those other activities are going to creep in and take over the time that we have set aside to meditate. This is also a reason why people will often tell you to meditate in the morning, because otherwise you may continue to push it off and never get it done because nighttime will creep in, you didn't meditate, and you're just too tired and exhausted to get it done. It may be for you, though, that the best time to meditate is at night, or your best opportunity to meditate will be at your lunchtime. So examine your schedule, get to know your own rhythm, and just go by the time that works best for you. My second tip is to not feel compelled to practice some sort of meditation marathon. By practicing smaller increments of meditation throughout the day, you're likely to benefit far more than having really long sessions sporadically scheduled throughout the various weeks and months. And if you are a beginner to meditation, then 5 minutes can actually be an ideal time to start with. And if you would like to build up to longer time, then you can schedule 5 minutes and then moving forward, add on 1 minute or 2 minutes until you get up to the time that you need. Some people even ask me how long do they need to meditate in order to have benefit. And again, as most things, there's a lot of varying opinions on this depending on which research you read. Some people will say 15 minutes, others will say 20 or even 40 minutes. I think one of the things to do is to practice, to experiment with different times after you've built up, and then based on your own individual needs, decide and go from there based on what you feel comfortable with. My next tip is to just acknowledge that even though meditation is straightforward and pretty simple, there actually can be some struggles with it. If it were super straightforward and simple, then everybody would be meditating every day and reaping the benefits, but it actually is hard to get to the cushion and to make that time. And whenever you are there, the chattering of the mind can be frustrating. So my hope is just by simply acknowledging that there can be some difficulties that arise with meditation, and this means that it requires dedication and perseverance in order to continue to have a meditative practice. And again, my hope is that by knowing this ahead of time, as you are trying to sit there, you don't give up and walk away from the cushion too soon, because there was maybe some false expectation that it would be overly easy. And I think sometimes some of the information out there on it does tend to gloss over some of these complications. So just be aware of that piece. My next tip is to surround yourself with motivation for meditation. This could be going to the library and checking out some books. It could be subscribing to a blog and regularly checking that, or a forum, or even subscribing to a meditation or a mindfulness magazine. The idea is that by surrounding yourself with this information, you will start to pick up tips and be motivated because you're engaging more in the process and the materials. And also, it can just be a nice visual cue to have on your bedside table a book about meditation, or as you go into checking your emails, maybe having one of those blogs bookmarked, and so that's a visual reminder of your goal to meditate. The next tip I have to share is to use humor. And this has been truly one of the best tips for me, because it just helps you to hold yourself and the practice a little more lightly. So let me give an example. Say you're sitting there, you're meditating, and your mind starts to wander and think about the future. So one way that you could internally respond would be feel like, oh, this is so frustrating. I was supposed to be focusing on my breathing, and what was that? The 5th time in the last 30 seconds that I started thinking about the future, and I just really need to focus on my breath right now. So take that response and compare that to a lighter, possibly more humorous response, which would be something like, whoa, there you go again, mind. Thank you so much for being that concerned about my future, but right now in this moment, we're just going to continue to focus on the breath. Breath in, breath out. Breath in, breath out. So maybe you can start to feel that there really is a difference between getting caught up in those frustrated thoughts and allowing yourself to be a little bit more playful with the process. It's going to be easier to continually return to the cushion if you know that you're not going to be beating yourself up for doing something that's perfectly natural and normal for the mind to do, which is to wander a bit whenever you're meditating. This brings me to, actually I want to make one more note about that before my final point. I am big on visual reminders, and so if you really do struggle with humor, you may have a visual reminder. I have a little laughing Buddha, and this does help me to remember to hold the meditative process lightly. And so you may find something that speaks to you, that reminds you to be a little bit lighter and kind to yourself whenever you're starting this practice. Okay, now for the final point, which is to be flexible. And so yes, we are trying to get ourselves committed to the practice, but life happens, and you may have a day where you didn't have time to sit down for the full 15 minutes that you intended. That's okay. Meditate later in the day. Do 10 minutes, 5 minutes, even 3 minutes is okay. And let's say that it was just utter chaos and you could not find that time to squeeze in meditation. You may just introduce some more mindfulness, perhaps by being mindful about your walking and your movement as you're crossing a parking lot or on your way to the train or the bus. So introducing this flexibility and allowing yourself that freedom to try different ways of meditating, or even shortening your time on that day, that's going to be better than being so rigid and not meditating at all because it didn't fit in with your expectation of what you should have been doing that day. And ultimately, flexibility is what meditation is about. You are helping your mind to be more flexible by not latching onto these thoughts and just bringing yourself back to your original point of focus, which is your breath or whatever your anchor of choice is. And the idea and the hope is that you'll be able to then introduce some of this flexibility into your daily life. So as always, thank you so much for watching, and be well and take care.